You are now entering the Sypnotix. I'm Alex, and we are looking at the RedMagic 6R gaming phone today, my full review of this device. If you would like videos like this and you want us to check out more phones like this, remember to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and make sure you guys comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this phone. So let's get into it right now. The RedMagic 6R is a gaming phone that is somewhat of a departure from what gaming phones have evolved into. Aside from a few subtle accent lines on the back glass, this looks more like a business phone than a black shark to me, a Xiaomi black shark. What really puts the 6R on the map are the internal parts in combination with the MSRP. With the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset on this phone for $449, you're able to get the same processing power that resides inside phones that cost twice as much. While that sounds fine and dandy on paper, significant software bugs plague the value here. Is this a flagship killer phone for 2021 or an unusable mess? The line is much closer than you think. On the surface, the literal surface, the RedMagic 6R looks and feels like $1 million. Well, at least $800. Constructed with an aluminium frame and an outdated Gorilla Glass 3, the phone is well crafted and easy on the eyes. The edges on the back glass are slightly curved to wrap into the grooves of your palm for a better grip. It's a little bit slippery like most glass phones are, but I attribute the width as my main source of gripping difficulties. I have this navy blue color Nubia calls Cosmo Black. Clearly, blue is the new black because I see no resemblance of black here. This is blue. I do like though that it has a slight two-tone color distinguished with a diagonally patterned stripe layout on the rear side where only the darker shaded camera window splits the layout. The RedMagic logo and tramp stamp are actually tasteful and not an eyesore. While I'm not usually a fan of these, there's an in-display fingerprint scanner that grew on me over time thanks to its solid reliability. I do appreciate the aesthetic design Nubia went with all around on the hardware here, and it's a stark contrast to previous generations of these phones like the Mars, the 5 series, and even the 6. This is, without a doubt, the most normal-looking phone under the RedMagic label ever manufactured. This is also one of the fastest RedMagic out there thanks to the Snapdragon 888, 8GB of RAM, and 128GB of storage. Combine that with Android 11 skin with RedMagic OS version 4, and at least on paper, we're competitive with the best of the best out there in 2021. Real-life performance lives up to the spec sheet hype as the RedMagic 6R doesn't really struggle with any heavy lifting at all. As this is tuned for gaming, as all RedMagic phones are, the playing experience is elite. I haven't come across any mobile game where the 6R struggled with quick load times or performance restrictions. I also haven't felt any warmth on my fingertips after playing on the phone for long periods of time. Nubia says they use this vapor chamber liquid cooling system to assist with maintaining the heat control. I'll be honest and tell you guys I had no idea what it was and had to Google it. Whatever the case, I've had multiple 60+ minute gaming sessions without feeling any heating on the glass, on the rear glass. Preventing overheating really is like this huge benefit of these gaming phones when compared with traditional phones. There is a benefit here. The last few phones I've reviewed that were non-gaming phones did feel uncomfortable to hold after short gaming sessions after a while playing intensive games. Further attributing to a good gaming experience is the 20:9 aspect ratio 6.67-inch 1080x2400p AMOLED display. We're hitting almost 400 ppi, so this is quite a sharp viewing experience for a phone under $500. Viewing angles are solid and the colors are respectively replicated here. Reds and other vibrant colors don't really pop off the display, but they're truthful to the real tone for the most part. It's a good display, but nothing mind-blowing. There is, however, gravy points to this display thanks to the higher refresh rate. The 6R can hit up to 144Hz refresh rate to really punch in that smooth transitional feel. You can really see this pay off on games that support 144Hz, which isn't a lot, granted. As far as I know, there's only a handful of games out there that go as, okay, maybe like 5 handfuls of games that hit as high as 144Hz refresh rate on Android. I think it'll be a while before all game developers support that on their mobile apps. Speaking of games that support higher refresh rate, first-person shooter games benefit from the higher refresh rate tremendously, as do they benefit from utilizing the 2 shoulder trigger buttons. If you've used any gaming phone before, this isn't new information at all. A left and a right trigger perform with a 400Hz touch sampling at a 8.3 millisecond latency. You can program the 2 capacitive buttons anywhere on the screen throughout the proprietary Game Space program. I don't utilize the triggers for a majority of the games I play, as they're quite touch-oriented in too many different positions to actually use the buttons consistently. The buttons can be used creatively, though, to be utilized in certain games, but they're best combined with racing games and shooting games. At least that's what I've found the use cases for. I don't really have much to say about the triggers or the RedMagic Game Space, which is a gaming enhancement menu that you kind of pull out and adjust settings quickly on the fly while you're gaming. We've seen these gaming modes so frequently now, just from about like every brand, that there really isn't much that stands out here. Supporting all of these positive things, though, on the 6R is a gigantic 4200 mAh battery that lasts far and beyond what an average user can squeeze out of it in a full day. A gaming phone requires longevity and efficiency, and I average 5+ hours of screen on time, between 14 to 16 hours every day. Those are excellent numbers that I'm more than happy to live with. I'm playing pretty intensive games sometimes. This helps alleviate some of the inconveniences from not having a wireless charger on here. And although in my opinion, this is just my personal opinion, wireless charging should be a standard feature across the landscape of smartphones in 2021, I do feel as though that the RedMagic has done enough to warrant an excuse not to have Qi charging at a $499 MSRP. They fill in a lot of checkboxes here. So while the RedMagic 6R certainly has a lot of flagship killer DNA in it, all of that potentially gets washed away if the phone doesn't work correctly. I've been encountering a very, very annoying issue with the phone that, according to Nubia, in one of their system update logs that is classified as this: probabilistic black screen problem, whatever that means. At complete random times, the RedMagic 6R will lock up and restart automatically. This has happened so often for me. Sometimes it would get stuck at the boot screen and cut to a dead black screen for extended periods of time. There's one time I've had the thing stuck for a whole 5 minutes on a black screen in the middle of the workday, which I needed my phone for. As far as I can tell from my usage over the span of more than a month, there really were no trends that lead this to happen. Nothing I know triggers this to happen. Nubia sent out an update that supposedly fixed the problem in early August. Wow, that update did indeed decrease the frequency at which this issue occurred, at least in my usage. I did re-encounter it again one more time just before writing this review, so it's still around for me at least. It's an annoying little software bug that literally hampers and anchors the usage of the device, so that's detrimental. That issue, along with the Metacore camera results, make the Magic 6R a little more difficult to recommend than I originally hoped when first unboxing it. The 4-camera setup isn't horrible, they're just not very memorable. We have the standard affair with a 64 megapixel f1.8 wide lens, an 8 megapixel f2.0 ultra wide, a 5 megapixel f2.4 macro, 2 megapixel f2.4 sensor for depth, completing the camera team on the rear. One thing of note that not every phone out there has the capability to do, but this phone does, is it shoots 8K at 30 frames per second for video. That's kind of a bit of an overkill here, and I think it's silly to include this but not really work on your photo quality or video quality in the first place. In some ideal instances, the 6R rewards you with clear and sharp images, and even then, they aren't like the cleanest of detail we've ever seen here, especially when framing objects with a variety of like different characteristics on either the face or their clothing or their hair. Focus and exposure are also weak points on this camera. When in auto mode, The 6R pumps up the ISO more than I would have manually done so in order to compensate for the low light situation. So I'm basically saying the AI on the camera isn't that great. This, of course, adds grain and further removes detail from the shots. It's a pretty bad low light camera. Simple as that. Landscape shots with natural lighting aren't all that much better either, though. So colors are a tad bit washed out and unnatural with a bit more reliance on over-processing to compensate. So there's a lot of these things here that I don't necessarily like as much as other cameras do. Although this is a gaming phone and not much is expected out of it when it comes to camera performance, there's still plenty of room for improvement just to bring it up to an average rating. So at the end of the day, would I recommend the RedMagic 6R to the general masses? Can this fill the shoes OnePlus abandoned years ago? We're talking about the highest end processing power for a pretty low amount of money. This is a phone that does a lot more good than it does bad. It gets the important stuff right, and there's a reason why they're important. The highest end processing power on Android together with a strong battery life showing for under $500 makes this as enticing as any other flagship killer phone ever made. There's nothing much we can do about the camera experience here, but the other problem that I had, the probabilistic black screen display problem, has already seen a software improvement. I don't see why Nubia can't fully eliminate it eventually with a further update or something with the software refinement on their OS skin. Like, ultimately, I still believe that the value here is too good to pass up for a high-end performing phone. You don't need to be a gamer to appreciate gaming values and flagship values.
So the other day, I was on a Zoom call at work, and I just dropped everything I was saying, and I told them, subscribe.